Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to the Capricorn Cup. This will be on the Chukyo track, which is a 1200 meters track and is focused on a straight line acceleration following the final corner. The stat requirements for this CM are simply to get as much speed, power and width as possible while trying to pick up a bit of guts for dueling. The stamina requirement can literally just be met by playing the Aharu scenario. But before we continue, I want to give you some disclaimers for this list. Sprint CMs are ultimately highly volatile due to random acceleration proc timings. If someone hits something and you don't, even if they are an F tier horse, they can still win. Distance and turf S, while lovely to have, are ultimately not super significant unlike in the longer distances, so do not worry too much if you miss it. Right, if you have experienced the mouse CMs, I want you to expect even more RNG here than there. Alright, so now with the disclaimers done, let us proceed to the parents that you are going to be looking for. The S tiers will be Mummy Super Creek and El Condor Pasa because of their straight line acceleration uniques. Narita Brian has a potential final corner speed carryover, or at worst it will be a mid-leg speed carryover. And Marozensky for those of you who are hunting for a delayed activation by hitting 5th on the acceleration phase, you can go and use her for your late surges or end closers if you are going to be running them for this CM. Other skills that you can look forward to are the mid-leg skills like Sakura Bakushino, McQueen, TM Opera O, or finishing skills like Oguri Cap or Symboli Rudolph. Basically looking for any skill that can help you to get a leg up over the enemies when you are positioning yourself for the acceleration phase. OSHI Tier List wise, notice in this tier list, I just decided to slap one gigantic OSHI list here. That's because for this CM, if you are willing to force your OSHI into this CM, you can legitimately win as long as you know what skills to buy on them. The problem with sprint CMs is due to the fact that a majority of horses must do mediums and longs in order to clear their careers, right? That is very painful, really painful. Right? You will basically have to overstam your horse for a sprinter CM where literally the baseline is all you need in order to clear the stamina requirement. So some of you may even need to bring Riko Kashimoto just to get the stamina to clear the career. It's not entirely bad because Riko does give you Rushing Gale, which is one of the accelerations that you can gamble on in this CM due to the straight line at the start and the straight line in the acceleration zone. Right? Our Riko is not as good due to straightaway acceleration only giving you 0.2 XL, but it is still pretty okay to go and pick up. Right? So if you really feel like it, you definitely can just shove your OSHI in here, but I will not recommend it because it is very time consuming and sometimes very frustrating when your horse goes to Tenosho Spring and crumples because she doesn't have enough stamina because you're training her for a sprint CM. Right? That's one of the big reasons why a lot of these horses I throw them into the OSHI list over here. Right? If you're willing to do it, go ahead and do it. In the A and S tiers, I've placed some of the horses with troublesome careers, but that's because they do have some potential if you can shove them into this CM. These horses are represented with the purple hard to train gate kept symbol here. Alright, let us start with some of the backliners like Narita Taishin, Dober, Brian, Kawakami Princess, and both of the Gold Cities. These horses have some really tough races in their career, notably Tenosho Spring is one of the big ones, but their uniques can work well on this track to give them speed carryovers or excel. For example, let us look at Taishin. Taishin has Encroaching Shadow, very powerful acceleration skill, and also has Nemesis for speed carryover, allowing her to be a possible win con for you in this CM, but she ultimately will have to go through a very tough career, especially because she does have Embolism as one of her debuffs during the halfway mark in her career. Right? Mayano OG is also considered here because her growths aren't as good as Wedding Mayano. 20% stam growth is really quite painful for trying to max your speed for a sprinter's CM, right? Their uniques, however, still remain very solid, and you can potentially hit a good carryover on this track as long as you are hitting their requirements a little bit later in the final corner to go and carry over into the acceleration phase. Daiwa Scarlet and Suzuka are also viable here. You can also use Current in replacement of Daiwa Scarlet. You're basically setting up a potential overtaking strategy. You don't have to care too much about Silent Suzuka's speed. Her whole purpose in life is to just get caught up by Daiwa Scarlet or Current or any other overtakers, and you can technically use other fronts too if you want to. You can use Bourbon, you can use Falcon, any other horse to basically go in front and use them as a purposeful I want you to lose so that Daiwa Scarlet or my overtaker can just overtake you and win you. Alright, next we have the two Oguri caps. These two are perfectly fine for this sprint CM, with Triumphant Pulse being very solid for these sprinter CMs, but Xmas Oguri is a little bit awkward because her gimmick is to buy a bunch of recoveries, letting her cut on stamina requirements. This is a sprint CM, so there's no such thing as stamina requirements. She's more like a pace chaser gambler here that has to buy recoveries for a sprint, making her a very weird horse, but the carryover is similar to Daiwa Scarlet getting a very good proc on her Resplendent Red Ace. Next, we have horses who do have some decent aptitudes in in their sprints, such as Wedding Air Groove, Fuji Kiseki, Hishi Akebono, King Halo, and also Taiki Shuttle. These horses have some simple careers and do have good growths, allowing them for comfortable times, making them for the sprint CM. But why are these horses not S tiers? Because their careers do have some lacking things. Like for example, for Taiki Shuttle, if you wanted to hunt for your head-on, you would have to make her into a medium, for example, but that's not super necessary. You can go and hit it from the fireball, right? But other than that, there's also some skills that are also really problematic, because if you look at King Halo or Hishi Akebono, for example, King Halo has a vision debuff, which is very awkward because that really doesn't do anything for helping her to win. And Hishi Akebono has a go recovery for a sprint CM, which is hella awkward, because why do you need a recovery for a sprint CM, right? That is really ridiculous. So these horses do have some lacking things inside of them, but they are still able to be pumped out very good, and some of them do have some at least solid enough uniques that are viable for this CM, right? This means while they are fairly easy to push out, they're not going to be the strongest or most reliable for this CM in general, right? Taiki Shuttle is here also because her unique is very weird. She needs to activate it late and only within the final corner. If it activates on the straight line, it cannot. There's straight up no way for her to activate the unique on the final straight at all, right? She needs to activate it in the final corner, and it must be late. She is subject to the whims of the lobby in terms of the team composition, or you specifically have to design a whole team around her to delay the activation of her unique to a good timing, which is basically hitting 4th at a good late timing or hitting 3rd at a good late timing. Either go front to back or go back to front in order to get her to delay the activation of Taiki's unique as much as possible, so you can get an acceleration proc into the final straight, right? Maruzensky is similar to Taiki Shuttle, but a little bit more lenient, because even if you go into the final straight, you can still proc normally, right? So you still need to delay the activation for Maruzensky. It will be available at the 5th position instead, so going back to front is a little bit easier. But the problem with Maruzensky is that her late surger aptitude is G, so you will need to pump a little bit of sparks into her to try to get her to do that. To do this, you need to basically get 10 pink sparks just to get her to C on late, and you must inherit her mid-run to get her to an A or S late spark. You can still win with her as G late spark, but I still wouldn't recommend getting so low. At least get to C at least, right? So this means that you will have to sacrifice some of the sparks for your Sprint S, which means that you're going to be a little bit more unreliable to hunt down for Turf S or Sprint S or whatever S you're looking for your Sprint CM, right? So yeah, other than that, we also have S Maru, which is also a possible horse for this CM. She can be used as a generic mid-leg speed skill with her unique. You can make her into a pace chaser to get access to more accelerations, right? And you basically gamble a random recovery, like Hydrate, like a race planner, so that you can try to hit the activation later and potentially make your S Maru into a speed carryover unique. It is still random, but it is a possibility for this S Maru to get a Hydrate or something like that and hit it at the later point of the final corner and get a speed carryover, which is very massive for S Maru. You ideally want to shuffle into Pace Chaser, because Pace Chaser has more access to gambling options than your front position. Front position, you don't have angling at all. Angling and scheming is disabled for this CM because there is a straight line on the final XL phase, which means that you cannot get angling and scheming, right? Now we move on to the S tiers. There is only one front that I consider S tier for this CM, which is going to be your Smart Falcon, which is discovered by the VF Court. It actually made me flashback like 3-4 years ago to a time where I actually asked about this because the Ref Doc mentioned it also, right? Smart Falcon can activate her unique on the final straight of this track. This can be supported by the Ref Doc because the Ref Doc also mentions that the track does overlap the middle and final legs. So within that one frame, what happens is that the game says that Smart Falcon is considered on the middle leg straight, which allows her to activate her unique even though she's actually on the final leg straight, because within that one frame, the game is basically buffering late. I don't know how to explain it easily, right? It's basically buffering late, so it basically makes it so that, hey, you are both on middle and on final, and you're on straight line at the exact same time. So that's why the game allows you to activate your Smart Falcon unique on this track here, right? So this makes her very strong for getting that XL, but the bad thing about Smart Falcon is that there is a risk to it. If there is another front runner in the lobby, then Smart Falcon will activate her unique too early most of the time, because as long as that other front runner is within 2.5 meters of Smart Falcon, Smart Falcon will activate her unique too early, and that means you lose that 0.3 excel. So you will need to make Smart Falcon into a very, very powerful front runner for this CM. You will have to use your dodging danger or horror wit with your groundwork, with your taking the lead as much as possible, so that you have such a huge distance that by the time they catch up to you, you are way beyond the first straight. Then you go to the finishing straight, and then you activate 0.3 excel, and that secures you the victory. Right, so that's a very, very powerful thing to use for this CM if you want, but do note that it can be countered by just putting another front runner and then touching Smart Falcon's butt. That will literally stop her from winning the game. Right? Next, we have two of the parents that you saw just now, El Condor Pasa and Mami Super Creek, both of which have very strong uniques but are very annoying to make since their sprints are low aptitude. Like Mami has a G sprint, for example, so it will take a little bit of retrying until you are able to hit that Mami Super Creek to get her to at least A or even S sprint. Right? Pasa also suffers from the fact that she needs 1 to 2 position to secure her unique, meaning that you need to make her very strong, or you need to pray for some very weak lobbies. So unless you're willing to make a very strong lucky pacer Pasa, or even crazily enough go all the way to a front Pasa, which is ridiculous, right, then you can forget about it. This horse really wants groundwork, really wants anything to help her become one of the strongest pacer horses. And even then, if some people just bring like 2 front runners and they purposely don't let your Pasa activate, it's over already. Literally, it's over. They just block you, and then Pasa cannot activate any of her plancha at all, right? So you also lose that unique over here. Mami is a little bit more easier because Mami is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pasa is only 1 and 2. Right? For the rest of the pacers in this S tier, we do have Bakushino and also Kurun-chan. These horses are very well suited for the track due to their growths and careers being very sprinter mal-focused. Kurun's unique is great for the overtaking. Bakushi is just an easy horse who has turbo sprint inside of a kit. For Mayano Wedding, she does have a little bit of understanding that you need to do first. One is the fact that she has many different long G1s. Those long G1s will basically make her finals into a long CM, so making her for a sprint CM while having to do a long career is very, very annoying. One of the ways you can reduce this is to actually just make her do a few more medium races, or if you can even go out of your way to do like straight up 6-mile races to go and make her into a more easier finals. For medium, you basically want to have a certain amount of stamina, so bring Rico just to get rushing gear access and also to give you some stamina guts so you can clear the medium is generally quite a solid idea to make the run a bit more comfortable for you. Wedding Mayano is probably the better horse for this just because of her growths being very, very evenly split between speed, stamina, and wit, allowing you to get the sprinting stat lines of speed and wit as high as possible, and also give you enough sufficient stamina when you're clicking your power or clicking your stamina every now and then to just pump up your stamina and clear your career. And Wedding Mayano has better growth than regular Mayano and has access to Shapeshifter and Fast Learner events, making her a lot more comfortable to make than your regular Mayano Top Gun in terms of the stats, right? Her unique also can potentially give you a carryover here, right? For the last horse, we do have OG Air Groove as a late surger, and Air Groove has a potential speed carryover in her unique and a relatively simple career with a C in sprint, so she is able to basically be made very, very easily. You play her as a late surger, play her as a pace chaser if you want to. Both are actually quite viable because her unique is very big range. It's basically as long as you're third or less, right? So you can be 3, 4, 5, blah 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 blah, right? And then you can just activate this unique. So you can play her as a pace, you can play her for head on, blah blah blah. You can play her as a late player for on your left, blah 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 blah, right? Air Groove is very, very solid for this CM also. Right, as you can see, this tier list really prioritizes the horses with the easier careers to allow you a lot of comfort when grinding your horses, because sprint CMs are ultimately super volatile, so I don't want you guys to burn out like crazy preparing for this one CM where if you go in with an awesome horse, right, you can just die to one random guy hitting better than you, right? That's just what happens a lot of times in these sprinter CMs, right? Whoever hits better shall win most of the time, right? Yeah. Moving on, we have the skills that you're going to be hunting for. These skills will define whether you can gamble your victory or not, so you definitely want to go and pick these up. Right, you're aiming for every single corner speed skill that you can find. Curvature, speed star, anything that can proc on the final corner and give you a potential speed carryover, because that is very, very valuable. After that, you're looking for straight accelerations and Highlander, since the hill is actually positioned pretty well and we are more likely to get a decent Highlander proc than not. Right, straight accel is also the same logic. You can get a decent proc more often than not. Right, there's a little bit of a risk for pace down, little bit of a risk, but if everyone is buying these accels, you may not have a very, very bad time gambling this anyway, right? If it procs at a good timing, holy shit, you're going to win the game, Alright, we can even pick up skills like Meticulous Measures, which is completely random by the way, but because it's cheap and it can potentially hit at a good timing, you still want to go and pick it up because it is more often than not going to hit at a relatively okay timing. Ignited Spirit Power is also one of those that can be used for this CM. Right, the track is fairly small, so these skills are generally going to be proccing pretty okay and secure you a big victory. Of course, they can hit badly, but that's just how this sprint CM goes. You need other things to help you to win. You cannot just rely on your own horse to basically win the game for you, right? Although if everyone somehow misses everything, then of course the horse that is the most reliable will be able to win. For front players, do get the usual stuff like your groundwork, early lead, blah blah blah, but do not get angling and scheming. I repeat, do not get angling and scheming. I know you're very muscle memory now to go and get angling and scheming for every CM. This CM is not angling and scheming. This CM is only plancha or mummy super crit because the XL is final straight only, right? Dodging danger is fine here to use for this CM. There's no corner at the start, so feel free to pick it up as a combo with Prudent or Ignited Spirit Wit, no problem. Alright, that's the only little disclaimer that I want to give for the front runners. Do not get angling and scheming. If you come to my stream and show me an angling and scheming, I'm going to cry, right? Because I've seen this happen many times before already in other skills, right? Skills and paces. For pace chasers, the lobbies will be filled with pace chasers as everyone has Bakushin and El Condor Pasa. This one I know for a fact, right? Bakushin is the most popular horse. You can expect to see 3 Bakushins in every single lobby because she is very easily accessible, right? Very easily accessible. Because of that, making them strong to become lucky pacers or position well for your uniques like Plancha or Mami is very important, right? Uma Stand is useful because there's a huge pack of pacers most of the time. Groundwork is useful as well. Then after that, you hunt down for your head-on, Shadow Break and Speedstar for speed carryovers or for accelerations. Right, moving on, we have Late Surges. Late Surges you can add on your left to the big list of possible accelerations as it tends to proc well here, and then Redshift or Shadow Break are also possible gambling options for you in terms of speed carryover or gambling for the acceleration. For Encloser Enjoyers, unfortunately we don't have specialists yet for the Encloser for sprints. Durandal is one of them later on, so we unfortunately do not have any short CM Encloser specialists. Straightaway Spurt is usually not enough to get you a significant win, but you can still rely on your other XLs hitting better to allow you to get a good win, right? You have to mostly rely on Taishin for getting you more reliable wins for this CM because you're relying on Encroaching Shadow and other XLs and potential Nemesis speed carryover because this is a final corner, right? If Taishin activates her Nemesis on that final corner, she can get a pretty fat win, but if she activates it too early, then it's not going to get her a fat win. It's more going to be positioning her for something else, right? I'm not recommending you inherit Nemesis, obviously. I'm just saying Taishin is probably the only end that I would consider running for the end closer position in terms of being able to win, and even then her career is so tough that you may not be able to go and do it properly, right? So yeah, ultimately paces are the easiest and brainless option to do, so I think it's going to be very popular. Lates will be a viable option just for a little bit of gambling in terms of that Redshift and whatnot. We don't have Ryan, we don't have Dober, so unfortunately there's no super gamble like that, so it's going to be a little bit tough for the late surges a little bit. Right, moving on, we have the Nimble Navigator skill. Nimble Navigator is a low chance to proc due to the final mid-leg corner. It spreads out people quite a bit, so it's a bit hard to try and get the Nimble Navigator to proc at a good timing. But if you do hit it, you still get a very fat acceleration at the start, and that could give you a massive victory. Right, so you can still get some good value from it. Feel free to pick it up if you want. Even a delayed activation is still something. Right, so you can still try and pray for that kind of delayed activation if you want to. Right, for Xmas Oguri enthusiasts, you can basically buy any recoveries that activate on the random corner, and you pray that they proc late. So you're buying like Hydrate, Pure Heart plus Race Planner, some things like that, to basically get a corner random proc, and you pray that you can get the Festive Miracle to proc at the perfect timing like a Daiwa Scarlet unique, and then you can basically try and win with that. But you will have to sacrifice SP for those recoveries, which is very, very annoying also for making your Xmas Oguri. For team compositions, prepare whatever you want for the sprint, but it's mostly going to be pacers because they are basically the easiest to prepare for position. Or if you have a specific strategy, you can also try to use Taiki, Daiwa, Maru, then you can run them as late surges or overtakers specifically, so you can try to basically hit their uniques at good timings if you want to. Right, there's not really much team compositions here. Triple late surges is not very viable. There's no 6 and 5 to go and aim for, so there's really not any point using these kinds of triple late comps. You just use whichever horse that you like or you're comfortable with, and you just throw them in and you basically clear it. Literally, if you throw in your team 12 horses, you can actually get to A finals as long as you have the correct accelerations on them, they can literally bring you to A finals, because that's just how these horses are, really, right? Like this CM is just hit the stat threshold, buy random gambling skills, gamble good, gamble win, right? That's just how these CMs work. That's all I have for you guys. If you're worried about the CM, I would like to say that don't worry too much, enjoy the gambling. Right? If you cannot enjoy the gambling because you want to go and win, then this is the wrong CM for you. Because this CM is really super volatile. People will just lose because of one guy procking something at absolutely perfect timings, and then they just beat the shit out of you. Unlucky, right? So that's just what's going to happen in this CM. If you've played Mal, you have probably experienced that before already. But there's no Thanos comp for this CM. This CM is straight up just 1 million gamblers. Everyone just gambles. Someone's gonna win. The easiest ones are the Pacers, so I will just use the Pacers and just call it a day for this Sprint CM. Definitely can go to A Finals 1 as long as you gamble for this CM. Right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any other questions, go through Twitch, YouTube, Ko-fi, or the Moomoo Discord server to seek the answers. And I wish you all a happy grind for this CM, and goodbye everyone. Bye bye.